Hello and welcome to PMI's Uncommon Sense podcast, tools to improve your work forever. I'm Susanna Clark, Managing Partner with PMI. Our Uncommon Sense podcast is a 15-minute conversation with our expert consultants. They talk a lot of common sense, although much of it is not common practice. And that's what this podcast is all about. We want you to be inspired to improve your business through learning more about the tools which can help you succeed and grow. So today I'm joined by Dennis Crommentuijn-Marsh. Dennis, thank you for joining me. Would you like to introduce yourself, please?
Hi, Sus. So my name is Dennis Crommentuijn-Marsh. I'm a director consultant with PMI. I've worked here now for the last 16 years. I'm also head of data analytics and insights. And in these last 16 years, I also have an active part in product and service development that we then use to build up our portfolio of services that we then sell to our clients.
Thank you. And for anyone who's listening who is familiar with Dennis, you're not going to be surprised at today's topic because we're going to talk about idea generation. And idea generation is very close to your heart, Dennis, isn't it? You'd like to
absolutely.
Tell us why that is?
I think it's the fun and the joy of having a challenge where the answer doesn't present itself naturally, and you have to go through a series of steps to find a solution which overcomes the initial problem, but actually is far, far better than you ever thought possibly possible in the first place. And the joy I get from coming up with solving a problem through, let's call it slightly more unconventional thinking, is a great delighter. And also I can see the benefits that it has to the organizations I work with.
And what we're talking about here is going beyond popping people in a room and saying, have a think, what ideas have you got? We're talking about something that's much more structured than that, aren't we? Can you describe some of that to me?
Absolutely. I mean, one of the things I always check with people when we talk about idea generation is how natural do they feel is their ability to generate an idea? How creative are they? And some people will say on a scale of 1 to 5, say, yeah, I'm a 3. You get your occasional 4, but you also get quite a large portion which go 1 or 2. No creative bone in their body. And what I always say to them, no matter where you are on this scale of 1 to 5, is I will give you a method by which you will be more creative. So what time and time again the method has proven to me when I use this with clients is we get better outcomes and better results by trusting a method by which to be creative.
So the why using a method is to involve more people in idea generation, and particularly for those who don't necessarily feel comfortable perhaps at stepping forward, or it's not a comfy space for them, is to give them a method, and your experience is that they engage with the method much better than just a free-for-all have a think.
No, absolutely. There's often an initial reluctance to being facilitated through a creative thinking session. But I've never had a session yet where people say this was not value add. As a matter of fact, it's the opposite. People come out of it far more positive, far more engaged with the problem, let alone the solution, and therefore actually the confidence that they have a solution that will have a high, and therefore have a solution that has got and therefore have a solution that has a high likelihood of actually being successful because they now believe in it. And they've worked hard at a set of stepping stones to cross that river from the unknown to something they probably think can work.
So what would be useful, I think, is can you give me some scenarios when people might benefit from using idea generation? What situation would I find myself in where I think actually I should use a more structured methodology for idea generation?
So if there's a problem where people have literally no idea about how to solve it, it could be number one. Number 2, a problem where there's a range of options, where they have to explore different options by thinking them through, and therefore decide, is that the best option we can think about, or is there an other alternative we had not discovered? I'll give you an example of that in a minute. And the third one is where people have a problem where the people in the room have a high anxiety, a high level of critique or challenges or issues that stops them to move beyond where they need to be.
Okay.
So where there's what we call psychological inertia in the room to break out, and I will say it only once and I will not say it again, to break out of the box and think differently.
Okay. So, do you have some examples that you can share with us of different types of idea generation methods?
Sure. I'll give you a few examples that work in a transactional environment, and also I'll give you one that was in a more practical environment. So in a transactional environment, I worked with a sales team, and the sales team was told we're going to deploy a new strategy. And the question was, how are we going to deploy the strategy? But unfortunately, this particular strategy that had now been created, given the experience, the wealth of experience within that sales team, they said, we've done this before. Why should we do it this time again? It didn't work last time.
Okay.
So what I had here is a reluctance to engage with how to deploy the strategy in the first place, let alone then what are potential ideas, ways to deploy the strategy. So this was a classic scenario where I go to one of my favorite creative thinking techniques, which is reverse idea generation. So reverse idea generation is where we first make the problem worse. We tell all the reasons why something can't work, can't function.
Okay.
And then we reverse those reasons back again. And then we actually go into the creative thinking, which is now the how can we make it better. So there's a series of steps within this. And as long as people are prepared to be guided through them, to be facilitated through these steps, there'll be 2 levels of outcomes. Number 1, a far better engagement of the initial reluctant people with the topic. And secondly, the quality of the ideas is because it's based on problems of the past. They therefore become solutions for the future.
I can imagine feeling somewhat uncomfortable starting off with how can we make it worse, and almost laughing, if you like,
Yeah.
But I suppose that in some ways, in the example you use, so, strategy, so what would make it worse? Well, we could do nothing. That would make it worse. And actually, in a way, then that makes you think, right, so we really can't do nothing. We've really got to do something. And in a way, as you say, it's sort of breaking that psychological inertia. I can absolutely see how that could work really well. Interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned there's something absolutely key, Suze, which is about laughter. The best idea generation happens when we are in a joyful, happy mood. So therefore, part of the facilitation becomes to encourage a relaxed environment where people don't feel the need to be defensive. And therefore, I create boundaries which are sometimes very, very wide of what is permissible as potential ideas. And then from these wide, crazy ideas, we then bring it back to the land of, okay, what's practical? What can we now actually safely, legally, and morally test in the next few, in the coming period?
So you said that was your favourite. Give us another example then.
So another one, so this was a method called reverse. I'll share 2 more methods with you. Another method is 6-head thinking. So this came from Dr. Edward de Bono, and it's about exploration before decision making. And again, what it does, it breaks through a personally held position about something by exploring different opportunities, different options, positive, negatives, and alternatives, and therefore come up with a far better outcome. So so I have 2 examples, Suze. You tell me which one. The one with my wife or the one with the finance company about investments?
Let's go with the finance company, just so you know, in case your wife's ever listening.
She doesn't know about this particular one, but yeah. So with the finance company, it was an investment decision. It was about investing in France, in this case, into a portfolio of properties. And they had been discussing this over the course of a long period of time. And say, Dennis, what do we do? I said, all right, let's go through 6 heads and see where we end up. Within the course of 30 minutes, we came to a decision. Because everybody in the room was following the lead of what do we know, what don't we know, what are the benefits, what are the concerns, and what are the alternatives. And by the end of 30 minutes, the CEO said, right, I've heard now from everybody a considered response, and the decision in this particular case was not to invest in this particular portfolio.
Okay.
And this was a classic example of having a well-facilitated method by which to break through again an inertia of not sure how to solve something, and by coming up with a new alternative, they therefore came up with a better decision where everybody was willing to support it, and that was the consensus piece. So that's 6-head thinking. The third one I'll mention is TRIZ. So TRIZ is a Russian methodology. So this came from a Jewish-Russian gentleman called Altshuler. Back in 1946 he started with this. And it's all about breaking through contradictions. So I need something to be strong and powerful, yet light and economical. So we have a contradiction. And within this particular methodology of TRIZ, there's one rule, Rule 13. And Rule 13 is my go-to rule for any problem that I see. And the rule you will know by other names. So Rule 13 is turn it around.
Okay.
Reverse the problem. Reverse the challenge. So in this particular case, it was about an engineering company which had to fit 2 parts together, and the one part was not able to fit on the other part. And they did something extremely simple and elegant. Instead of forcing one piece into the other piece, we'll do it the other way around. And just this simple thinking about turning something around, you also have it, of course, in psychology, reverse psychology. Rule 13 for me is a golden rule that if I'm stuck in the moment, I say, okay, how can I turn the problem around? And the solution I then get is often a solution that's practical, it's easy, it's cheap, it's quick, and actually fixes the problem I have.
Sounds brilliant. You should come and work. Okay, come round to me. I've got all kinds of things that would work well with.
And I also have finally a Brucey bonus. You're probably not used to it. I've got 3 for you and then a Brucey bonus. So the final one I would mention to you is to not underestimate the power of YouTube or Google. So whenever we have a problem, if you are able to verbalize your problem or write it down and then generalize it such that when you stick it into Google or into YouTube, so somebody somewhere in the world had a problem similar to you, and that somebody was kind enough to video themselves or write it down in a blog, and then also, of course, share with the rest of the world. And very often in these blogs or these videos, not only do they show you how they did it, but also what went wrong whilst they were discovering how to do it.
Yeah.
The learning that comes from that is absolutely incredible. And then your skill, of course, is to find that video and see, okay, how does this video now meet with my specific problem environment, my specific issues that I have. So the skill here is to abstract in the first place your problem to a general problem, find the general solution, and then concretize it. Is that a word? Concretize
I like it. It should be a word if it's not. Go for it.
So concretize it into your specific solution that works for you in your specific situation.
Okay, great. So final tips for someone who's thinking, should I do this and how should I go about idea generation? What would you say?
So first of all, Suze, idea generation as a method, it works. It has been proven to work. And the outcome will be something that people are most often willing to support as well. Where do you start? Well, I start with Googling YouTube. Or, go and find creative thinking methods. Or, of course, go to our pmi.co.uk/webinars website, where I have got a webinar on creative thinking methods. And the link will be down here in the corner or somewhere here, if you're on the video podcast. But if not, go to our pmi.co.uk/webinars landing page. You'll find a lot of information about creative thinking there. Start small, start easy, start simple. Be kind to yourself, don't get it right first time, and don't give up.
Brilliant. Thank you, Dennis. And of course, listeners, Dennis is always available. And as you can tell, he likes talking about idea generation. So please do feel free to reach out. Thank you very much for your time today, Dennis. Really enjoyed it.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much for joining us. You can find more episodes of our Uncommon Sense Tools to Improve Your Work Forever in our Knowledge Hub on our website, or, of course, your favourite podcast platform. And do subscribe so you never miss an episode. Don't forget to check out the show notes for this episode, where you'll find links to more content on this topic, which includes webinar recordings, toolbox guides, blogs, and infographics, and our training page. You can always drop us a line on team@pmi.co.uk and arrange a time to have a call to talk about how these tools can help you in your organisation. We'd really love to hear from you.